Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. It is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, my international friends, join me as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies, movie news, TV, all that sorts of good stuff going on in pop culture. And today's a little bit of a surprise show. You know, I was originally not planning on doing another John Campea Show for the rest of the week because I leave for Canada today. Normally I go before Christmas. Today we're going the day after Christmas, so I leave for Canada today. But I thought, you know what? Yeah, I got enough time to do one. Let's get together with the international friends and talk about our favorite things in the world. And that's what we're going to do here today. We're going to talk about a number of things here today and then spend most of the day taking your live questions that you guys want to send in. And if you want to send in a live question to be addressed live on the show here, there's two different ways you can do it. Number one, you can use that tip link that's in the top line of the video description below. You can see that. You can send it in there. And by the way, you can use that link 24/7 and we'll get around to your next question on the very next show. Or this show as we happen to be, or you can just use the super chat feature on YouTube. But before we get to all that stuff, let's go on to our main topics of the day. And how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. See, you guys come up with the main topics by going anytime over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question, hit submit, and then maybe, you never know, just maybe, you might see your submission featured here as a main topic on the John Campea Show. Now, before we get into the first email, though, there is one little thing off the top that I want to cover that I just kind of noticed. Now, look, there are good movies and there are bad movies, and it's all subjective. A movie that a lot of people hate, you may love. A movie that a lot of people love, you may hate. All that kind of stuff, and it's all good. Film is art, and we all have different impressions of it. One of the more interesting films that come out this season, though, is Cats. Now, I still, full disclosure, have not gone to see Cats. I've been busy getting caught up on some screeners for some films that I hadn't seen yet in 2019 as we head into award season. And I was really excited for Cats for a couple reasons. Number one, I absolutely love the director. I think the director is fantastic, Tom Hooper. I think he's absolutely incredible. I love what he did with Hugh Jackman's Les Mis. I love what he did with The King's Speech. Both Academy buzzed films. I love this guy, and he was directing Cats, so I was totally down to see what this guy would do with Cats. And number two, while the first trailer was terrible, I actually thought the second trailer had some upside to it. So, and you got a great cast, a great list of performers. Anyway, the reaction to Cats has become legendary. From critics and fans alike, pretty overwhelmingly, nauseatingly terrible. Now, again, I haven't seen it. Maybe I'll watch it and I'll think it's the greatest film of all time. I don't know. However, one of the things that I am never feel comfortable with is when actors or directors or whatever basically try to delegitimize people who just didn't like the film. I mean, that's it. I mean, people don't like the film because I don't want black people in my movie. Well, yes, go ahead and criticize that. But, you know, we've seen from time to time, it doesn't happen often, that a actor or a director or writer, whatever, will just take aim at anybody who just doesn't like the movie. And we are getting that right now with Cats. Now, what we're getting right now is, I hope I'm pronouncing his last name properly, but actor Jason Derulo has coming out and he's just basically assaulting anybody who doesn't like Cats and saying they just don't know art. Now, to be specific, we all know how it's getting absolutely destroyed. This movie's getting destroyed. Here's what he said initially. He said this: "Reviews don't matter, man." And you know what? That's fair. That's fair to say that I don't think reviews are all that important. That's okay. I disagree, but I see where he's coming from. And that's totally fair to say. Reviews don't matter, man. At the end of the day, people are going to see it, and it's going to be, well, apparently not, because it only made $6.5 million on its opening weekend. But hey, whatever. People are going to see it, and it's going to be a deportation to another dimension. An incredible, brave piece of art. So far, I have no problem with what he's saying. I disagree with him a little bit, but I have no problem with what he's saying. Hey, people are going to go see it. Clearly they didn't. And it's going to be a deportation to another dimension of incredible, brave piece of art. Okay, cool, man. That's the movie you're involved in. You feel good about it. That's awesome. But he goes on to say, I'm just excited for the people to actually get to see it. Reviewers, what the hell do they know? Have they made a film? Okay. This is where you lose me. This is where you lose me. No. Well, first of all, a lot of film critics have made films. Most haven't. Some film fans have seen films. The vast majority hasn't. The implication he's making here is that if you haven't made a film, you have no right to say you don't like a film. What the hell do you know? You've never made a film. You don't get to say whether a movie is good or bad. To my response is, really? That's the approach we're taking here? That unless you've made a film, you don't get to have an opinion about whether something's good or bad. And if you have an opinion about how good or bad a film is, if you haven't made a film, your opinion is completely irrelevant. Doesn't matter. Your opinion means nothing. You don't know what you're talking about unless you've made a film. I got a news flash for you, Jason. I got a news flash for you. I'm not a professional chef. I've worked in a restaurant, but I'm not a professional chef by any stretch of the imagination. Mac and cheese is a crowning achievement for me, my friend, and I'm very proud of that. So suck on that. Anyway, I am not a professional chef. So are you saying that if I go into a restaurant and I sit down and I have a burger, or I have some, chicken Alfredo, or I have some veal parm, or I have a slice of pizza, or I have a steak, or I have some beef Wellington, or I have whatever, are you saying that I don't get to say whether I think it tastes good or not? You're saying that my opinion on whether what I just ate tastes good or not, because I may not be a chef, but I am pretty much a professional consumer of food. We all are. We consume food to live. You can sort of say we're all professional food consumers on that level. So are you saying that unless we're professional chefs, that anything we have to say about what we think, whether a piece of food tasted good or not, is completely irrelevant and doesn't matter? Look, I get it. You want to defend your movie. You're proud of your movie. You think it's a great piece of art, and that's good. Good on you. You should be proud of it, and you should support it, and you should defend it. But you don't defend it by trying to just lambaste or discredit anybody who just doesn't happen to share your opinion on that. Now look, if you get some film critics saying, I hate this movie because I don't like cats in general. I'm not a big cat guy myself either, but if there are critics out there who are saying, I hate the animal cats, I hate cats, and therefore I hate this movie. Okay, call them out on that, because that should have no bearing on whether you like the movie or not. Call them out on that. That's fair. But I'm sorry, the people who watch my show can eat, a deep dish pizza, and they have a valid opinion as to whether they think that deep dish pizza tasted good or not. They don't have to be a professional pizza chef to have an opinion and for their opinion to be valid. It doesn't have to be the same opinion as yours. It doesn't have to be the same opinion as mine. But just because they don't make pizzas for a living does not mean they don't get to have a voice and a say and a right to express what they thought of that deep dish pizza. They do. And I want to suggest something to you, Jason. You're not doing your film any favors by coming out and just saying anybody who doesn't like this thing, your opinion just doesn't count because you don't make movies. You're not doing yourself any favors. You're not doing the film any favors. Now, look, I'm also not going to get on this guy too hard for this. He's an actor. He's passionate about his movie. He wants to defend his movie. God bless. So that's great. So I'm not sitting here, from now on, Jason Derulo's dead to me. No. I think he was speaking passionately. He loves his film. He wants to be supportive of his film. He wants his film to do well, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I'm going to get personally as a fan, just as a movie fan, just a general movie fan, I'm going to give him a pass on this. I think we should all give him a pass on this. But do let him know that you probably shouldn't do this again. It probably wasn't the smart thing to do, and definitely not a smart thing to say. So anyway, that's just my thoughts on that. What do you guys think about it? Jump on down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, with that down, let's move on to the first email that got sent in here today. And our first main topic today got sent in to us by David McTeary, who writes, Hey John, here we go. I know you're sick to death of all the Snyder Cut stuff, but I was wondering if you saw that Snyder just confirmed that a totally finished version of the film doesn't exist and that just, quote unquote, all the hard creative choices are done. Whatever that means. What do you think of his comments? All right. I don't know how many times on this show I've said this will be the last time we ever talk about the Snyder Cut. I must have said it at least 3 or 4 times, and yet here we are again. But this is worth it because this is a significant new development. Now, you guys know for some time, everybody's, John, what the hell is this apples in the bag thing? You guys have known, everybody's sick of hearing about the apples in the bag. I get it. But for those of you who don't know, but you keep hearing us talk about it, we've all been saying for a long time, look, there is some edit, some version of the film that Zack Snyder has done that if you were to go over to his house, you could watch it from start to finish, right? There are apples in the bag. We agree that there's something exists that goes from a starting to an ending that you could go over to his house, sit down and watch from start to finish. That exists, right? Whether you want to call that an assembly cut, whether you want to call that 90% done, whether you want to, whatever you want to call it, I think most people, not all, but I think most people agree that some version of the Snyder Cut exists that you could go to his house, sit down, watch from start to finish. In this analogy, we all agree there are apples in the bag. That's the apple. We all agree there are apples in the bag. The disagreement has been over such a cut is actually a 100% ready to be released in theaters tomorrow version of the film. We'll call that a watermelon. So some cut that could be watched, apples. And actually 100% ready for theatrical release tomorrow, watermelon. We've been talking about this for a long time. We all agree there are apples in the bag. What I'm saying is that there's no watermelon in the bag. Anyway, so one of the interesting things about this is that Zack Snyder himself has been purposefully pretty vague on it. He has never confirmed 100%. There's a 100% finished version of this film that is absolutely complete. No work left to be done. It's ready to be released tomorrow. Tell Warner Brothers to release it because it's totally done. On his social media, in the last couple of days, Zack Snyder, responding to somebody else, has pretty much cleared the air on this. And by the way, let me reemphasize something that people who watch my show regularly understand. I am unabashedly a Zack Snyder fan. I will always be, as a movie fan, forever in his debt for creating the most underrated superhero film of all time, Man of Steel. I think that thing is a masterpiece of the genre. I like Batman versus Superman. I know there's a lot of people that don't. That's fine. I get it. I even like Justice League. As it is, I like Justice League. But I really like Zack Snyder. I'm quite a fan of his, and I cannot wait to see what he's going to be doing next with his zombie film. Getting back to some roots that he's really, really good at. At any rate, Zack Snyder got on his social media the other day, and he basically said this. He said, the film is not 100% finished. Still some stuff I want to do, as with every film I've made. This is key. I'm not sure what the difference it makes as to the finished level of the film, but the hard creative choices are done. I want us to really focus on that last part. Not even the first part where he says the film is not 100% finished. I want us to focus on that last part where he says, I'm not sure what the difference it makes as to the finished level of the film. Zack, that's been the whole focus of the debate. Whether this is a completely finished movie or not has kind of been the debate. So when he says, I'm not exactly sure what difference it makes as to the finished level of the film, but he says, the hard creative choices are done. Of that, I've never had any doubt. I've never had any doubt personally that the creative choices that Zack Snyder wants to make in his film, I've never had any doubt that the creative choices he makes have been all done. However, creative choices don't take extra manpower and don't take money. I mean, they're hard. They are the hard creative choices that you need to make, but you don't need teams of people and millions of dollars to make hard choices then become a manifest reality. So Zack Snyder has pretty much now come out and confirmed, okay, yeah, it's not 100% done film, but I don't know why everybody's focused on how finished is it. Because that's kind of the whole point, Zack, buddy. That's kind of been the whole point of the debate. And he says, okay, what is finished? The hard creative choices are done. Well, okay, but that's not having a movie that you say doesn't matter how far along it is being finished, but that we have the hard creative choices done. He's just basically affirmed that we have apples in the bag, but not a watermelon. So I personally think this puts this whole debate to rest. There is something that exists that you could sit down in his house and watch from start to finish, and that exists, but it's not a completely ready to be released that Warner Brothers can just release the Snyder Cut. That's why I've been putting out the hashtag complete and release the Snyder Cut. Those of you who watch my show, you guys know that Robert and I on this show have a couple of times talked about how I think it would be a good idea for HBO Max. I think it'd be a really good idea for HBO Max to take whatever is there of the Snyder Cut, put a little bit of extra money in to polish it up, and then release it on HBO Max, because I think that might be a draw for some people to sign up for HBO Max when it comes out. I don't know that Warner Brothers would ever agree to that, and we've gone into it ad nauseum as to why they probably wouldn't. But this brings up something else pretty interesting. You know, while the whole does a completely theatrically release ready version of the Snyder Cut exists, debate has been going on. Every once in a while, I get a message from somebody saying, John, I think you're misunderstanding the release the Snyder Cut supporters, because we don't think there's a completely finished version of Snyder Cut. I'm like, dude, you haven't seen the emails I've gotten from people. Absolutely, a lot of people think this is 100% complete. But every once in a while, I get messages from people who are big release the Snyder Cut supporters to say, John, I think you're misunderstanding us. We know, at least a lot of us know, it's not completely done. We know that. We just want to see it. That's all. We just want to see it. Finished or not. We just want to see it. We know it's not actually finished, but we just want to see it. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting that you say that, but I don't know if I buy it. And this brings up an interaction I had yesterday with one of my viewers, and I wanted to share. This is all public on Twitter, so I'm not sharing any secret information here. But a discussion I had with one of my viewers last night on Twitter, I wanted to share this with you because this pretty much sums up the discussion. So Luki Sabidi writes, I'm of the same opinion in this particular issue. I find that John Campea, speaking about me, keeps harping and yucking on our yum when it's really not necessary. See, I would suggest here's an opportunity for John to understand. It's not about how complete it is, but just our will to see it. So here we have another person saying, John, we don't actually think it's done. Well, to which I replied to him, I quoted his thing. It's not about how complete it is, but just our will to see it. And I wrote, except I'm constantly being yelled at that it's absolutely 100% complete when it clearly isn't. Hell, I support hashtag complete and release the Snyder Cut and actively endorse the idea that HBO Max should fund and release it. To which Luki then replied, I'll be the first to say that the being yelled at part is completely stupid and shouldn't happen. I will, however, propose, he says to me, here, that the vocal percentage that yell at you maybe don't reflect the majority who understand it's not complete, but just good enough to be, as he put, seeable. To which I replied to him, I 100% endorse your position. However, I said to him, I challenge you to tweet this out. Tweet out, the Snyder Cut isn't actually finished, but I believe there's enough to at least see. And watch what kind of response you get. And then I put Lando saying, good luck. To which then Luki gave me the greatest reply. He gave me, it's a trap, which I thought was great. So hats off to you, Luki, for writing that in, because I think, because that was hilarious. All right. So I then came out of that conversation and I thought, well, I've had a few people tell me, listen, the majority of us in the release of Snyder Cut camp, we understand the movie's not done. Which has not felt like that's the case to me, because I get a lot of people blasting me all the time. It absolutely is 100% finished and the world is flat. Anyway, so I'm like, I just don't know if that's true. So I decided to make that the topic of today's question of the day. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. Every once in a while, we do a poll for the question of the day, and I end up being unbelievably shocked by the answers. And today is one of those days, because I asked on today's question of the day, I put this up on Twitter just before we started the show, and I asked, The John Campea Show question of the day. If you are a hashtag Release the Snyder Cut supporter, do you believe it isn't actually 100% theatrically complete, but just want to see it completed or even just as it is? Or do you think it's 100% theatrically complete? Watch us discuss here. I'm not going to lie to you. I honestly thought, my perception of this, which apparently was way off, my perception of this and what I thought this was going to be an 80% of the people who claim to be Release the Snyder Cut supporters would say it's absolutely 100% done. And maybe 20, 19, 18% of the people would say, no, we know it's not done. We just want to see it. We'd like to see them complete it, and we'd like to see it. And I was way off. I'm happy to report, I'm thrilled to report that I was way off. Because a little over 2,200 of you guys have cast votes. And right now, 76.4%, I'm stunned. I'm absolutely stunned. 76.4% of you guys who claim to be supporters of Release the Snyder Cut are saying, no, we know it's not complete. We know it's not complete. We just want to see it. Which I completely support. I completely support that. And only 23.6% of people who identify themselves as Release the Snyder Cut supporters are saying that they actually believe the film is 100% theatrically ready to be released, and all Warner Brothers has to do is snap their fingers and put it out in theaters if they wanted to. I'm not going to lie to you. I've had some of you guys telling me this, but that just hasn't been my experience with the messages I get. But I think Lukey, who wrote into me, if I'm pronouncing Lukey's name right, forgive me, brother, if I'm not saying it right. I think he raised a good point. I think maybe what Lukey's suggesting is that the loudness and the all caps and the name calling and all that kind of stuff of people who fully believe that the film is 100% complete has just been louder and more frequent. Therefore, that has altered my perception of the actual percentage of people who actually think it's done. So, I mean, I'll tell you what, guys, color me shocked. Color me shocked, pleasantly shocked, happily surprised. But it looks like even within the hashtag Release the Snyder Cut camp, there is a difference of opinion. And apparently the majority of people within that camp don't actually think the film is completely finished, which is kind of what Zack Snyder just sort of affirmed himself. Anyway, I just thought that was fascinating and interesting, and it turned out I was completely wrong on my perception of how many people thought what. And I thought I owed it to my audience to come out and say, you know what? I was wrong. I thought the vast majority of the people who were hashtags Release the Snyder Cut people completely just thought it was 100% done. I would have argued that, and I was apparently completely off about that. And I'm thrilled, but I thought we should talk about that a little bit. So anyway, guys, I put the question to you, and I'm going to leave that poll up for the next 24 hours. Do you guys think that even in light of everything Zack Snyder's now said, do you now think that the Snyder Cut as it is a 100% completely theatrically ready to be released, that Warner Brothers could snap their fingers tomorrow and release it? Or do you believe, no, there are apples in the bag. There's a cut and we just want to see it even as is. And if that's the case, let me know what you guys think. Jump down to the comment section below. Let me know your thoughts, and let us all pray to whatever gods we worship that we never have to speak about this topic again. And with the next time we talk about Zack Snyder, it can be for the release of his brand new movie. So let's just hope for that. Okay. Anyway, with that down, let's move on to our second main topic today. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Joe Stengel. Joe Stengel, who writes, so I saw what you said during the last show about weekly episodic shows versus a full episode drops, and totally agree. Having a new episode drop each week as opposed to all at once is much more enjoyable for myself as a fan. My question is, do you think Netflix and other full drop platforms are losing money because of their shows only being talked about for several days as opposed to months at a time? All right, thanks a lot for writing that in, man. And for those of you who aren't really sure what it is Joe is talking about, in one of the open mic segments of the show, this topic sort of came up, and we addressed it briefly about how, look, we have two different philosophies of how these streaming services drop their shows. Services like HBO, services like Disney Plus, and some others drop their shows traditionally in a week, one episode a week. Then we have things like Amazon Prime, and I believe Amazon Prime does it this way, and Netflix, which drop an entire season at once. So the question then becomes, which is the better way to do it? What's the better way to do it? Now, my position on this used to be that from a business point of view, it's probably better to do it 1 week at a time, because that gives your show a chance to build an audience over time, because when you release one episode, everybody talks about it. But then next week, you release another episode, everybody talks about it again. And then the following week, you release another episode and everybody's talking about it again. You give your show more time to let word of mouth hit the ears of some average fans and maybe decide to go and check it out, and it creates a snowball effect. As opposed to dropping a show all at once, when everybody talks about it, news and ahs about it for about 4 or 5 days, and then nobody's talking about it anymore because everybody's already seen it. And now you don't have that long tail of people talking about it. I said, but, so that's from a business point of view. From a personal point of view myself, I prefer dropping it all at once so I can binge the damn thing, right? I prefer dropping it all at once so I can binge the damn thing. So then The Mandalorian came out. And what I said during the live question segment was a little bit of a change of position for me. Because The Mandalorian came out and it made me realize that actually I enjoy it more as a fan when it releases 1 week at a time. And the reason being is, when we look at The Mandalorian, I've been able to enjoy the release of Mandalorian with all my fellow fans, and on a week-by-week basis come back with fans and talking online on Twitter or in my comment sections or whatever, and we continue to be able to talk about and celebrate Mandalorian, the things we like, the things we didn't like, all that kind of stuff, and we're all able to jump on it and be excited. And I have found that myself, not as a pundit or as a YouTube doodler, I found that myself, just as a fan of Mandalorian, I've been able to enjoy the show even more because I'm getting that week in, week out interaction with my fellow fans, building anticipation to the next episode, blah, 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 blah. Because what happens when it all drops at once? When it all drops at once, nobody's on the same page. Some people have watched the entire show in one day. Some people, it takes 2 or 3 weeks to watch it. Some people are on episode 7. Some people are on episode 3, and you can't really talk about it per se. As opposed to when this thing comes out 1 week at a time and we get to build our enthusiasm and we get to talk about that one episode for an entire week together as fans and stuff like that. I gotta say that for me as a fan, I have really discovered that I enjoy, when it's a show that we like, I personally enjoy this format a little bit more. And that's a change of position for me. So the question is, why did Netflix even ever do this in the first place? Well, it's easy, and it was brilliant. The main reason Netflix came out of the gate when they started to have their own original programming and dropping an entire season at once. I remember when they did that for House of Cards, and everybody's like, wait a minute, what, the whole season's out? It was a brilliant move because it became the main thing to differentiate what Netflix was doing as opposed to what everybody else was doing, including mostly traditional broadcast cable television. It became the thing that set them apart. And I think it was brilliant. I think it was brilliant for them to do that. But now there are other people that do that. And it's not such a big differentiating thing. And I'm starting now to believe that while it was brilliant at the time to come out and do that, I'm starting to think, and we've been hearing reports that Netflix and the upper offices are starting to consider that they're going to start experimenting with some shows, not doing an all-at-once release. If I'm not mistaken, I think they've even started the experiment, if I'm not mistaken. So I think within the next 2 to 3 years, you're going to see that even Netflix will understand it's time to release it 1 week at a time. Is doing it the way they're doing it hurting them? I think so. Because while certain shows like Stranger Things are massively popular and successful, I think there's 2 things to keep in mind. I think we're underestimating the fact that it could be even more successful if it did a week-to-week thing. But the other thing we're forgetting is that for every Stranger Things, there's 3 or 4 other shows that get dropped on Netflix that none of us even know exist. And maybe if they were week-to-week releases and people saw 1 or 2 episodes and got to start buzzing about it, and then another episode came out and they got to buzz about it more, and now all of a sudden you got people talking about this show for 2 months instead of for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 days. And I think they're leaving money on the table. I think it was a great way to start. I think it was a brilliant way to come out of the gate. But now I think it's time for them, and I think they realize this, it's time for them to go to a week-to-week. And the big change, of course, for me has been I've gone from personally preferring dropping it all at once to realizing as a fan, my experience with the show has been improved by Mandalorian by watching it week to week with my fellow fans. I don't know. That's just me. So the question I have for you guys is, how do you feel about that? Do you think, are you starting to turn around, or do you still completely believe that, nope, drop it all at once is the better way? Maybe you're starting to change your mind like I've changed my mind on, no, now I'm actually starting to think that releasing it 1 week at a time is the better way. How do you guys feel about it? I want to know what you think. Jump down to the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right. With that down and out of the way, let's move on to our third main topic today. And unfortunately, I lost the email, so I don't have the email here, but I'll tell you what it's about. The third topic here today is about the movie Joker. Joker is probably, I don't know for sure, but probably about to become the second comic book movie in a row that gets nominated for Best Picture. Last year, we had Black Panther nominated for Best Picture. This year, it looks like we're going to get another comic book-based movie nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards in the form of Joker. And it couldn't be more deserved. I love this film. Joaquin Phoenix is definitely going to get a nomination for Best Actor, might even win. Joaquin Phoenix might even win, which would make it just the second time that 2 actors won the Academy Award for playing the same character. Of course, it happened with The Godfather, with Marlon Brando and Robert De Niro. And now it would happen with Joker if Joaquin Phoenix wins, with Heath Ledger and, of course, Joaquin Phoenix playing the same character. Completely different universes and totally different renditions of the character, but still the same character, Joker. But is it the same character? Is it the same character? You see, one of the things people talked about coming out of the Joker was, okay, we know there were some scenes that were just fantasy in Arthur Fleck's head. We know that there are some scenes that were just fantasy in his head and other scenes that weren't. But director Todd Phillips has come out and made a comment about this that is going to get the discussions going even more. And in my personal opinion, his comments hurt the movie. Let's take a look and see what Todd Phillips said recently. He said the following. He's suggesting that maybe Arthur Fleck, who we saw in the movie, isn't actually the Joker. This is what he said. He said, there's many ways to look at the movie. He might not be Joker. This is just a version of a Joker origin. It's just the version this guy is telling in this room at a mental institution. I don't know that he's the most reliable narrator in the world. You know what I'm saying? Todd Phillips. So Todd Phillips is kind of suggesting something that a lot of people have talked about, which we've talked about on the shows. Like, how much of this movie was real and how much of it was just Arthur's hallucination. And now Todd Phillips is taking that even further and even suggesting he might not even have been Joker. He might not even be Joker. Which some people will say, I kind of thought that all along. I think there are some fans who hear Todd Phillips say that, and they might even think to themselves, yeah, I've always kind of thought that there's a possibility he's not even Joker at all. That he's not that guy, somebody else, and it's just not Joker. But I'll tell you what it does for me. And again, I'm not making a statement that I think everybody should agree with. I'm just kind of working this out myself as a fan. A lot of the times I'll talk about things on the show that I don't have a definitive position on, but rather it's just like, I'm trying to process this myself as a fan. And I'll tell you what I'm processing right now when I hear Todd Phillips say he may not even be the Joker that we think he is. To me, that undermines the movie. Like, I don't mind us as audience having a question, but I want to know if the director had a vision. Or if the director right now thinks, maybe he was Joker, maybe he's not. and I'll be honest with you, and again, I'm still trying to process this myself. To me, it makes me wonder if this undermines the movie for me. If hearing that the director himself is saying, I mean, hey, it's possible that this guy isn't even the Joker, as he's saying, I mean, hey, he might not even be the Joker, which we see him say right here. I can't help but feel that maybe for me that undermines the movie and undermines my enjoyment of a little bit. Because I at least like to know that behind the mystery, there is an underlying truth to every film. And when the director suggests to me that there may not be an underlying truth to the film, it leaves me, and again, I hope, maybe I won't feel this way in a week, so please don't take this as me making a definitive statement. Like I said, I'm just trying to work this out in my own head myself. But there's a part of me that feels like if there's not a definitive underlying truth to the movie, then what was the point of me watching the movie? If like there's a potential that I'm watching all of this and none of it's real, what was kind of the point then? And so, I don't know. I may feel, like I said, I may feel totally differently about this a week from now because I have no definitive position on this. It's just that it kind of makes me wonder a little bit. So I wanted to ask you guys, what do you think about Todd Phillips's comments? Does it affect in any way, positively or negatively, what you thought about Joker as a movie? Do you think, no, it completely doesn't touch whatsoever? Do you think, no, man, this ruins the movie for me? Are you thinking, oh my God, this makes the movie even better for me? How do you feel about those comments right now? I want to know what you guys think. Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. With all that down and out of the way, we're now going to take a short little break and then come back and take your live questions. So if you guys will indulge me for a second, you guys have been firing in a whole ton of live questions. We're going to go over and get to those after our short break. So don't go anywhere. Hang tight. We will be right back. Yes, I know. I forgot to start the countdown clock again. I get it. I just had to go to the bathroom so bad I didn't even think about it. So here's a little bit of inside baseball for you guys, just so you guys know how this works. So I got this thing set up. However, I cannot set the clock to automatically start when I bring up the clock shot, the countdown clock. I got to open up that shot and then I got to go in and hit start, right? And it happens more time than it should. Every once in a while, I just completely forget to go in and click the start button. I'm like, whoa, we're on our break. I can run down and get my drink or go pee. Whatever. And I think in those terms. And that was just it for me. I know, hey, we haven't started the new year yet. So cut me some slack. Well, give me a fresh slate. I know I forgot it again. Damn it. Anyway, so forgive me for forgetting to start the countdown clock. Anyway, guys, now that we are back and the clock is now forgotten, let's get in and start taking your live questions that you guys have been sending in. And we're going to get things started off here with Benny S., who wrote, halfway through the Witcher show, and it's awesome. Biggest mistake I made, though, was reading the last Witcher before watching it. Because for those of you who don't know, there are a series of books on The Witcher, which the new series is based on. It's not actually based on the game. It's based on the books. Anyway, I made, though, reading the last Witcher before watching it. Now I'm kind of disappointed about all the stories that were diluted. Amazing show, even better book. Why did I do this to myself? See, that brings up an interesting thing, Benny. See, a lot of people often think the books are better than the movies, right? And I propose that that's not the case. I'm not saying it's the opposite either, but the reason I propose that that's not the case is just that normally what our first experience is becomes our measuring stick, right? And if you read the book first of almost anything, remember, a book can be 300, 400, 500, 600, 700 pages long. A screenplay is about 120 pages long. So a movie version is clearly going to be much different from a book version. But when you read the book first, now that book becomes your watermark, right? That becomes your measuring stick. And so the movie is going to be different. And so for a lot of people, I believe they go in because you find a lot of times in as much as we hear people say, I like the book better, 99% of the time, 90% of the time, they read the book first. But I often find it goes a lot different when on the rare occasion you talk to somebody who saw the movie before reading the book, they go, yeah, the book had a lot of stuff it didn't need to have. The movie was better, right? It really all depends on what our first experience was. And the fact that the book and the movies are going to be so fundamentally different because one, you can do a lot of different things and it's just a printed page medium. It's not a visual medium. So that's been a discussion I've been having with my fellow film fans for ever since my movie blog days. It's a really interesting one. All right. Ryan Lohner writes, some movies turning 20 in the following year. Whew. Gladiator. Oh my God, the movie's turning 20. Almost Famous, Requiem for a Dream, Castaways turning 20, Memento. Still a lot of people's favorite Christopher Nolan film. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Snatch. I can't believe that movie's 20 years old. The original X-Men film, Aaron Brockovich, Chocolat. And Battlefield Earth. God, Battlefield Earth. Was Battlefield Earth that same year? Oh, jeez, man. You know, I created a segment. What was it? What did I call it? Flashback? Is that what I used to call it when I was with AMC? I used to call like Rewind. That's what I called it. I called it AMC Rewind, I believe, where I think I called it Rewind, where we would look at films that were turning 20 and turning whatever. And I've always thought about doing that again because I always find it fascinating looking back at movies celebrating birthdays and anniversaries. But man, Gladiator, Memento, Crouching Tiger, X-Men turning 20 years old. And by the way, if you've seen the latest trailer for Star Trek Picard, understanding that X-Men movie came out 20 years ago, Patrick Stewart looks, I don't know, 5 years older in the new Picard trailers than he did in X-Men, the first X-Men movie. He maybe looks like maybe 5 years older. He don't look 20 years older than he did in that X-Men movie, like at all. Anyway, that's kind of funny. So thanks for making us all feel old there, Ryan. All right, Marie Seafring writes, the action drama mystery movie, The Rhythm Section, starring Blake Lively, who I love. She's, of course, married to Ryan Reynolds. Jude Law and Sterling K. Brown from This Is Us, is finally coming out in January. How excited are you for this movie? Thanks. Honestly, not that excited, only because I honestly know very little about it. I know that I like Blake Lively very much. And I know I like Jude Law very much. And I know I like Sterling K. Brown very much. So I know it's a solid cast, but I haven't really been following it. So it's not that I'm disinterested in the movie. Not disinterested in the movie. It's just I honestly really haven't been following it. So I can't be disingenuous in saying I'm so excited. I'm not there yet. Now I may get there. But I do know it is a hell of a talented group of people. So we'll see. Sterling K. Brown, by the way, if you don't watch This Is Us, it's kind of worth it just to watch him and Milo Ventimiglia. These two guys are just insanely... Actually, most of the cast of This Is Us is really quite wonderful. But in particular, Sterling K. Brown and Milo Ventimiglia are absolutely fantastic in that show. So you really should check it out. So here's hoping I get a little bit... They really haven't promoted this film much at all. Not at all. Anyway, Louis Cast writes, in the theater I work here on Guam, we show our commercials and trailers before the movie starts. We don't have assigned seating yet though, so at least we got that one thing right. And Louis, listen, I believe that's the better way to go. If you say a movie starts at 7 o'clock, show commercials and trailers up until 7 o'clock. And then start your movie when you told the audience it was going to be starting. How's that for a novel idea, huh? Now all you guys got to do, Louis, is get assigned seating. But I'll tell you what, you at least are doing that better than North American theaters are doing it. You're doing that part better than we are. And that we should probably learn from you on that. And then you can get caught up on the pre-assigned seating. Got to get caught up on that pre-assigned seating though, Louis. But anyway, I'm glad you're doing that part right. Thanks for sharing that, Louis. And I think that's the first time I've had somebody write to me from Guam. So thank you for that. Louis also follows up and writes, I meant to say the commercials and trailers start before the showtime. Oh, you implied that. Don't worry about that, Louis. I knew what you're saying. I honestly don't remember if I said that. So I guess here's another tip, John. Well, thank you for clarifying, just in case you thought you weren't being clear, but I understood what you're saying, Louis. No problem. Thanks again for the support, man. All right, Suthius writes, Kylo, shit, did you renew Amazon Prime? Ray, I got you, boo. Your spoiler review was hilarious. I think this is at the bottom of the Disney era movies for me. Almost every negative aspect you commented on, I agree with. Poor Leia didn't quite work for me. Yeah, and we did a 3.5 hour spoiler review of Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. For those of you who maybe have been out for a little bit, I didn't like the film. I applaud the filmmakers for trying something really big and really bold, and I think there's some really good things about it. As a matter of fact, today I was going to make the main topic. I was planning on doing two things. I was planning on making the main topic today, the 5 biggest problems of Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. And then like on Saturday, I was going to do a video on the 5 best things about Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. But I was having a conversation with somebody last night, and I just realized, and I slept on, I realized, you know what? I thought there was a way I could do it without really getting into spoilers, but if I did it without any spoilers, it really won't illustrate the points I'm making. And so I decided last minute to kind of change the main topic of the show. For those of you who saw, you might realize, hey, wait a minute, I thought the main topic of today's show was going to be the Star Wars thing. I just realized I can't possibly do it without any spoilers, and without using spoilers, I can't possibly effectively make the points. So I decided to change directions on that. But that said, while I'm in Canada, I am going to make a couple of standalone videos. So, and I will put a spoiler warning on it saying one will be on the 5 biggest problems with Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, the 5 best things about Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. And I'll put those up as separate standalone videos because I do want to get that done. But yeah, as for me, I wanted to like it. You all know I wanted to like it. I like all the other Disney films, all the other Disney Star Wars films, and love a couple of them. But this one, I just unfortunately couldn't. I see why there are people who do, and that's awesome that there are people who do, and I think there are some very good points about this movie. But yeah, overall, just wasn't for me. So unfortunately, Suthius, you and I are just have to be jealous of the people who did enjoy it more than we did. So there it is. All right, Ryan Lohner writes, Happy Life Day, everybody. The best thing I got this year was Slugfest. Which one? Is that the Arquette movie? Is that what hold on a second. What is, for some reason I think that's the David Arquette movie. Oh no, are you talking about the book? Are you talking about the book Slugfest? You're probably talking about the book. There's also a 1999 video game, but I don't think you're probably talking about the book Slugfest, the 20-year or the 50-year-old battle, the 100-year-old battle, whatever it is, between Marvel and DC. If that's what you got, that's great, because that book is awesome. I love that book, so I'm glad you got that, Ryan. I think you're going to enjoy it. 50 Shades of Geek writes, Merry Christmas, John. Thank you so much. The one day of the year when all the Christians of the world get together to celebrate a birthday to some... I've never thought of it in that term. When all the Christians in the world get together to celebrate the birthday of some Jewish guy. It is an odd way of looking at it, but it's oddly pretty accurate. It's actually a really interesting way of pointing it out. 50 Shades of Geek also writes, John, 1 of 3. A question. Do you think 2019 was the year of the 90s? Hear me out. Lion King, Aladdin, Pokemon, Alita, and Men in Black are all 90s properties that had big movies in 2019. Also, Godzilla, Terminator, Swamp Thing, Jumanji, Toy Story, The Addams Family, Little Women, and it all had movies / TV shows in the 90s and in 1990 and 2019. Joker and Hellboy are mostly based on comics from the 90s as well. Am I overthinking it? I'm just pointing out something me and a friend of mine noticed. The more we think about it, the more connections we seem to find between 2019 and the 90s. I don't think you're reading too much into it. However, I would say this. You've got to remember that there have been, according to NAFTA, the North American Theater Owners Association, or NATO, I should say, the North American Theater Owners Association, that, in their membership theaters, probably over 500 wide release movies to one degree or another came out this year. If you want to count smaller independent fare and things like that, you're getting now into the thousands of films that came out this year. Thousands. Can we come up with a handful of them that maybe had an association with the 90s? Sure. But in the grand scheme of things, I think it's good for us to keep in mind that that's still a relatively really small percentage. It's a really small percentage. And it's interesting that you bring up that perspective, because I've never really sat back and looked on a year-to-year basis how many movies this year were based on 80s properties or 90s properties or, whatever, period pieces of the 1700s, stuff like that. I'm not sure. But I think, again, I don't know that I would call it the era of the 90s because, again, it's still such a small percentage. And things, for instance, like Joker, that's not a 1990s property. Joker, it was around long before the 90s, and some other things as well. But again, even if you take those into consideration, I still think it's a relatively small percentage. So I wouldn't count it that way, but I haven't really thought about it. And I think you raise a really interesting perspective. So I'll have to think about that a little more. It's an interesting point of view. All right. Suthius writes, Hey guys, rewatched Force Awakens. For people who complained about Rey able to fly the Falcon first time without any prior experience, she says it in the movie after that first scene, I've flown ships, but I've never left the planet. There we can rest easy. Oh yeah, I don't, honestly, Suthius, I don't hear a lot of people complain about a lot of things about Rey. I don't recall hearing that one being complained about much, because you're right. The movie makes it very clear. She flies ships. Like, she knows how to fly ships. That's not a problem. And she was particularly acquainted with the Falcon. The movie made that clear. So, yeah, I've heard a lot of complaints about Rey over the last couple of years. But that's not one I've heard complained about very much, because I think even most people who don't really like the Rey character, they acknowledge that the movie itself explains that situation. So I think we can let that one go. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are more people upset about that than I give it credit for, but I've never heard that one as one of the big complaint points. So I think we can let that one slide under the rug. All right. Drew Kuenzinger. Sends in a really large tip. Thank you. Just so you know, when people send in, and I don't expect it to happen often, when people send in tips or super chats of $50 or more, I will actually answer your question in its own standalone video. So keep your eyes open for that, Drew. May not happen in the next day or two because I'm going to be traveling to Canada and all that kind of stuff, but keep your eyes open for it. But let's just touch on it quickly here before we answer it in its own video. I have been listening to you ever since Man of Steel. Well, thank you so much for that, Drew. That was a fun night. I just got back from my last deployment. Oh, cool. Thank you for your service, man. And I will be attending college to study film in Los Angeles. I would just like to say thank you for everything. Everything was subjective, and it's Ken Zinger. Oh, because what did I say? Kuhn Zinger is what I said, but Ken Zinger. Thank you for correcting me, because you know I'm terrible with name pronunciation. So thank you for giving me a finette. Ken Zinger, thank you so much, man. Well, first of all, honestly, I guess there's not a question there for me to answer. So there's that. So that is all that's left for me to do. Is, in the words of the Mandalorian, then all I have to offer you is my thanks. Thank you for supporting the channel, man. Number 2 of thanks, thank you for your service as well. Number 3, good on you for pursuing filmmaking. I've heard good. I've got some friends who went to, if you're talking about going to the LA Film School, maybe there's several film schools in LA, so maybe you're going to a different one. But good on you for pursuing your dream and all that kind of stuff. That's awesome. A lot of people talk about pursuing their dreams. Very few people actually get off their ass to do something about it. And I think that's awesome. So thank you on several different levels, and good on you for doing that. And here's hoping we all get to have a fun year as film fans in 2020. So again, welcome home, Drew, and best of luck in your film school endeavors, man. I hope to hear from you soon. All right. Thank you again. Next up, Sam writes, I watched The Avengers again and realized something. The script is brilliant. There is not much action in the movie. Most of it's on the helicarrier. Dialogue does most of the heavy lifting. Then I watched Justice League again, and now I am sad. Well, listen. On one hand, you're preaching to the choir. I still personally feel like that first Avengers movie is the gold standard of all comic book movies. I believe without that Avengers movie, there is no Infinity War, there's no Endgame, there's no MCU. They were starting to try to put the MCU together before Avengers, but if that Avengers movie went south, it would have ended everything real quick. But Joss Whedon did something so amazing with that movie. And to me, it is the quintessential comic book film. And everything that came after just stood on the shoulders of Joss Whedon. Joss Whedon really basically wrote the DNA of what an MCU movie is in that particular film. How characters interact, the dynamic between them, all that kind of stuff. He created the template. He wrote the DNA of it. And I just think it's the greatest thing. I like Justice League. I mean, look, I acknowledge it has its problems. No doubt. I cannot fault anybody who comes up to me and says, I hate Justice League. I can't argue. All I can say is I had a whimsically good time watching it. I went back to the theaters to watch it like 7 times. I really enjoyed the film. Even though I knew there was a lot of things wrong with it, the fun parts of it for me outweighed the negative. That's for me. But there are going to be people that it's the opposite. The negative outweighed the positive. I totally get that and I understand that. Do I think the first Avengers movie is a better movie overall than like the Justice League movie? Yes, I do. I agree. I think it's a better movie. But then again, I think it's better than every other comic book movie. But I think you make a great observation about how this is a movie, that Avengers movie, the heavy lifting is done with the characters and done with the dialogue and done with the inner character dynamics and all that kind of stuff. The action's great. Hulk smash. I mean, that is one of the greatest moments ever in cinema history. But it really is. A lot of the heavy lifting is done by a truly wonderful script. And maybe that was some of the weaknesses in Justice League. I'm not really sure, but I still like the one. But I get it. You didn't like that one. It makes you sad. I'm sorry to hear that. That's all right, though. Thanks for your observations, Sam. All right. Matthew Denton writes, a drinking game. Take a shot for how many times John has said Suicide Squad is a hot mess over the years. There will be no survivors. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because I feel like I need to give 2 disclaimers when I talk about Suicide Squad. Not the new upcoming James Gunn one, but rather the original one. One is, I acknowledge it's a hot mess. I usually say that first because the second thing I say usually surprises a lot of people. I like Suicide Squad. Again, like Justice League, I know it's a hot mess. I didn't think Justice League was a hot mess, but it had a lot of negatives. Suicide Squad is a hot mess in many ways, and I get that. But the highlight moments of it for me stood out more to me as I walked out of the theater than the hot mess stuff. And so when I would walk out of the theater, because I went to go to the theater to see it several times, I walked out going, I had a good time. I love the Joker Harley Quinn dynamic. A lot of the action was very fun. A lot of the one-liners were really cool. And it was just enough to make me have a good time. But I like to preface that by saying the movie was a hot mess. I get it, because there are a lot of people that don't like that movie. And I don't want to discredit anybody at all who doesn't like it, because I see why you don't like it. I do. I totally get it. No argument for me. I get it. But for me, I enjoyed the film. All right. Let's hope nobody has to drink that much, Matthew. Murray Reich writes, saw Spies in Disguise. I'm curious to see that. I might watch that when I get to Canada. I definitely got to go see Rise of Skywalker again, because I got to take my mom to go see it. But I might go see that again. Anyway, saw Spies in Disguise with my wife. It was really cute, very funny, nice family fun film for the holidays. 7.5 out of 10. Audience I was with enjoyed it a lot. You know what? I'm hearing decent things. Let me bring, just out of Spies in Disguise, Rotten, there we go, Rotten Tomatoes. I'm just curious about this, because I've been hearing some pretty decent things about it too. And you know what? I mean, hey, take this for what it's worth. It is what it is. Spies in Disguise right now has got like a 73%. I mean, look, I did not think the trailers to this looked very good at all. But overwhelmingly, both the critic and the audience score is positive. People liked it. And which is surprising to me, because I did not think the trailers looked good at all. I didn't think the trailers looked good. And obviously it's been it's Christmas time. I didn't get around to seeing it yet, but I've been curious about it, but I've been really surprised to hear just how many people have actually enjoyed it. So it's always great. Isn't it great as a film fan to think a movie looks bad, but then to find out it's actually pretty enjoyable? I haven't seen it yet myself. Maybe I won't like it, but it's really, really good to hear that. So I'm glad you had a good time with that, Marie, and thank you for sharing your thoughts with me, because that kind of just reinforces my my belief that I think I'm going to get myself out there to see it, maybe even when I'm in Canada. All right. Jonathan Joyner writes, one of two. Hey, John, I just finished The Witcher, and boy, did Cavill deliver. Even more, I think they nailed the non-linear storytelling, and I cannot wait for season 2. Listen, I will tell you what, John. Let me read a second part. Now, let's hope Mando also finishes on a strong note. Overall, the small screen was winning all of 2019. I wouldn't say that. But let's focus on the positive right now. I adore this Witcher show. I just adore it. And the one thing, without going into spoilers here, well, two things. Cavill is great in it. He's absolutely great. But this show is not just it's fantasy fan service. Ooh, the geeky stuff. This show employs some real high-level storytelling, like high-level storytelling. And I don't know that I've ever quite seen non-linear storytelling done this specific way and this effective. I mean, every episode, I was just like having these wow moments from the specific use of their nonlinear storytelling and the way they wove it all together. Again, I've used the phrase a lot. I'll say it again. High-level storytelling. Top-shelf storytelling. And it has really carried this film, along with Henry Cavill. How many times has Cavill said that? I don't know, but he's great in it. God, I love him in this show. And Mandalorian, last episode 7 was fantastic. And now we're going into the finale. Fingers crossed that they are able to end strong. It would be really, really good if they do, and it would bode well going forward. But it's a couple of really big winners. Some not so big winners, but a couple of really big winners this year, and we're ending strong. All right, Chris P writes, "No, wait, this isn't right. I'm sorry about the balls. It was a lucky shot, you know. Wait. I don't know. That sounds familiar, but you got me stumped on that one. I'm thinking, is it dodgeball? Probably not dodgeball. You got me stumped. It sounds familiar to me, but I'm stumped on that one right now. Those of you in the comments section, what's Chris referring to? Jump on in and leave your answers there. All right. Go So Fly writes in, I hope you had a good Christmas. Same for the crew. I had a great Christmas. Spent Christmas morning. Ann and I went out to her family's place on Christmas Eve, spent the night, went and had big brunch with the family, spent the afternoon there. Then Ann and I came home in the afternoon, and Ann and I had a wonderful, just relaxing time at home with the evening. Our friend Kaori came over. We just had a nice, relaxing evening. I played a little bit of... I'll show you what I did, actually. Some of you won't believe it, but I'll show you what I did. I put this up on Twitter last night just for the hell of it. But this was last night, Christmas evening. We were done with we were finished with the evening festivities. And this was me. I'll see if I can get this a little bit bigger. Can I get it bigger? Yes, I did. There it is. So I put this up on Twitter last night. That's Anne just pulling some things out of boxes. Or no, putting some of the Christmas decorations in boxes. She decided to get a jump on taking down the Christmas decorations. And me playing Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order with a damn controller. Yes, I'm still trying. I'm terrible with controllers. I'm a much better PC gamer, but I am still trying with the controller. So I decided to pop that in last night, and I was playing that. So yeah, man, overall, it was a really fun, great, wonderful Christmas. Wonderful Christmas. I had a great time, and now it continues as I fly home today. A little bit later, I'm going to be wrapping up the show. And by the way, because I am traveling today, for those of you who are Patreon supporters, and we go and do the Discord John Campea Show post-show chat, it's the holidays. I know it's been very sporadic us doing it because of the holidays, and I am leaving today, so there won't be a John Campea Show post-show chat. For those of you who aren't Patreon supporters, just so you know, we have a Discord server where a couple of times a week we do a John Campea Show post-show chat over on the Discord server, and I go over there and we talk, and it's actually, I really enjoy it. I look forward to it every week we do it, but there won't be one today because I'm traveling, so there's that. Anyway, Toonie2 writes, saw your Rise of Skywalker open spoiler discussion and was surprised. Everything you hate about the movie is no problem for me. I was expecting to agree with you more. I really like the movie, and that's awesome. Like I said, when I came out of the movie, I tweeted out and I put up a quick first reaction. I said, you know what? I think a lot of people are going to like this movie. I said, I didn't, unfortunately, and I wish that I did, but I think a lot of people are going to like it. And I see some real positives in the movie that I can see being more important to some people than the negatives that were unfortunately more weighty on me than they are on some other people. So I'm not surprised, Toonie2. I fully expected that a lot of people were going to like this movie. I'm happy that a lot of people like the movie. That's great to me. I'm not one of these, I don't like the movie, so I don't want anybody else to like the movie either. No, I'm not one of those guys. I don't like it. I'll explain why it didn't work for me, but I love that you liked it. I love that so many people liked it. I just love when people love movies, even when they're movies that I myself don't like. I can disagree, and that's cool, but I love when people love movies, and I'm glad you did too, Toonie, and I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that you did, and I'm not surprised a lot of people did. Tom Gillard writes, I went to see Cats because apparently... because apparently I hate myself that much. I got an hour in and I had to tap out again. I haven't seen it, Tom, but what you're saying is pretty consistent with what we're hearing from a lot of people. Be careful. That Jason dude from Cats will now say that you're not an actual filmmaker, so your opinion doesn't count. I'm just giving him a hard time. But I'm hearing the same thing, dude. I'm hearing that from a lot of different people, Tom. Apparently I hate myself. All right. That Norwegian guy writes, having seen episode 9 3 times now and judging it on its own merits and suppressing the fanboy in me, it's objectively a bad movie. Well, no, it's not. There's no such thing as an objectively bad movie. So let's just be clear about that. But anyway, it's objectively a bad movie, which is the sad conclusion I have reached. It's a mess narrative-wise. And you know what? It just goes to the same point. You know, just a couple of comments ago, we heard somebody saying they really enjoyed it. And I think there's things to enjoy in this movie. But then there are, unfortunately, people like me who are big Star Wars fans. And you know what? It didn't work for me. And look, let's not pretend this is the first thing Star Wars has ever put out that I don't like. I am a massive, massive Star Wars fan. Look, let me talk about this for just a second, because I think this is important. This is where sports fandom is a little bit ahead of movie fandom, okay? Sports fandom understands that you can be a fan of something and not love everything that thing does. For instance, I am a Toronto Maple Leafs fan. The Toronto Maple Leafs, for my entire lifetime, almost my entire lifetime, have sucked. In my entire lifetime, as long as I have walked on this earth, the Toronto Maple Leafs have not only never won a championship, they've never even been to the championships. All right, they've never even been to the Stanley Cup final as long as I've been alive. Wrap your head around that. Barely ever making the playoffs. I mean, they just suck. And Toronto Maple Leaf fans understand this. And we will say that year was terrible. They made bad decisions here. They did this wrong. But that doesn't stop us from being huge fans of the team. And I still have my Toronto Maple Leafs jerseys, and I still bleed blue and white. I don't talk about it a lot on the show because a lot of Americans watch the show, not a lot of Americans into hockey, so I try to spare. I'll talk more about football than hockey, but I'm really a hockey guy anyway. But we as sports fans understand that. Listen to New York talk radio. There are people there who will die for the New York City Giants. They will die for that team. But they will also be the first to point out problems with their team and things that they don't like about that team, but they will still die for that team regardless. I think there were a lot of people in over the years, when there has been something about Star Wars that I have not liked, heaven forbid that I not like something, it inevitably causes a backlash that I get from people. I thought you were a Star Wars fan. If you're a Star Wars fan, then you support it and you say everything is good and you get behind everything. And I'm like, that's not what a Star Wars fan is. That's not what a fan is. That's an enabler. That's not a fan. Being a real fan, and if you do like everything that it does, that's awesome. But being a real fan is being comfortable and secure enough in your fandom that you can say, yeah, that wasn't good, and I didn't like what they did here, and I didn't like what they did there, and at the end of the day, I am still a diehard, cast-in-the-wool Star Wars fan from birth to death. That's what I am. It's easy to say you're a Star Wars fan if you just legitimately like everything that they do. If you legitimately like everything they do, that's awesome. But it also makes it really easy to be a Star Wars fan if that's the case. It is, I think, a more pure expression of fandom when you realize, hey, this wasn't good and that part wasn't good, and yet, even though all that may be true, I still love this thing. And there have been things about Star Wars I haven't liked over the years. I hate the Clone Wars movie with a deep passion. I dislike all the prequels. I'm not a big fan of the Clone Wars animated series. There are 1 or 2 seasons of and certain episodes of Star Wars. I like Rebels overall, I do. Actually, I quite enjoy a lot of it, but there's some of it that I didn't think was all that strong, and I can talk about that. I have problems with The Last Jedi, and I didn't like The Rise of Skywalker. But none of that shakes the foundation that in the core of my DNA, I am a, from cradle to grave, Star Wars fanatic. And moving forward, there's going to be Star Wars stuff that I really like. And there's going to be some Star Wars stuff that doesn't work so well. Okay, none of that affects the fact that I am a Star Wars fan. None of that affects that. And it's okay. It's all right. And just because I didn't like the last Star Wars movie doesn't mean I'm not going to cheer for the next Star Wars movie. I am going to cheer. You know, I don't understand this philosophy. Some people, I didn't like The Last Jedi, so I hope everything fails from now on. I'll never understand that philosophy. I mean, God bless if that's how you feel. I'll never understand that point of view. Because I didn't like The Rise of Skywalker. Okay, but I'm still a big Star Wars fan, and I'm going to cheer for the next thing that they do and hope the next thing works. And hell, even if I don't like this movie, I hope other people like it, even though I don't. I mean, it is what it is. I hope they win the championship every year, but they're not going to win the championship every year. So anyway, that's just kind of my thought on that. And it is what it is. Anyway, thanks for sharing your thoughts, Norwegian guy. All right. The Devil Man writes, The Witcher Netflix show does a great job depicting how cruel society can be towards people with any malformations or abnormalities. We shouldn't add to the pain someone is already suffering. We should strive to lift people up. And yeah, I got that. And by the way, thank you. That's a really generous super chat, Devil Man. Thank you for supporting the channel on that level. And that is clearly one of the underlying implied messages of this show, is that we as a society, and I mean all of us sometimes, all of us, guilty. I think this is true of all of us. I think a lot of us, if not all of us, and our society in particular, is still particularly cruel towards people who have differences. It's an unfortunate, natural thing we as people seem to do. We have this unfortunate natural tendency to be I feel better about myself if I can point out and mock the differences or attack the differences in others. It's something that we do. And I'd like to sit here and tell you, I have gained enlightenment and I have risen above such things. I catch myself doing it. I hate it. I'm ashamed of it, whatever. But I'd be lying if I didn't tell you I don't catch myself doing it sometimes too. We do. It's a natural tendency. And I'll tell you something else I did. Look, I'm just going to be open book to you guys. Let me tell you something else I did that I'm totally embarrassed about. All right? I'm humiliated by this. I'm embarrassed by this. Ann and I were driving along, and as we do, we often joke about things we see. I'm ashamed of this. And I saw a woman pushing a cart, clearly just having done a lot of shopping, right? She didn't steal a cart. Clearly having done a lot of shopping, right? Pushing a cart, and she was a really large woman. And I cracked a joke about her physical appearance in the car to Ann. And we laughed for a second. And then I realized what a fucking asshole I just acted like. I realized that. I made the joke, I laughed, and then I stopped for a second. And I realized how I just acted like an insufferable, complete asshole. It's what we do. And I'm embarrassed to admit it. But I did it. And I think we all do it maybe more than we realize. And I love it when art can shine a light on stuff like that. Look, Witcher didn't make a big deal out of it, but they clearly made that one of the implied underlying truths of their narrative, that this is what we as people do. And I always appreciate it when good, fun art can also include stuff like that, because I believe it's things we need to have. Look, art is meant to be also a reflection of the reality. It's supposed to be an imagination of what the worlds can be, but it's also meant to be a reflection of what the world is in all of its beauty and in some of its ugliness. And I like it when art does that. And I like that a show like Witcher did that. And it's something that I, quite frankly, myself and a lot of us should be reminded of from time to time. But anyway, that's just me. Thanks for pointing that out, Devilman. All right, anyway. Muhammad Bahari writes, Muhammad Bahari writes, 5 things I loved in, let me see if there's any spoilers here. Okay, no real spoilers. 5 things I loved in Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. Kylo versus Rey round 1. We see in the trailers that they fight multiple times. You can see that in the trailers. Rey's arc, Ian McDiarmid just hamming it up, and the pep talk. 5 things I didn't like. Kylo's arc mixed. Final fight not satisfying. Opening scene was rushed. Too similar to Return of the Jedi and retconning. I can't really go into anything here in detail, which is why I kind of replaced it as my main topic today. I can't go into any detail about my thoughts on that. And because, we're at the risk of giving spoilers away. All I'll say is that I generally find myself vibing with what you're saying. I disagree with 1 or 2 little things, but I generally find myself vibing. I can't obviously go into the details about the things I agree with or disagree with, because that would be spoilerish. But again, watch over the coming days. I'm going to make a couple of videos from Canada on the 5 biggest problems with The Rise of Skywalker and the 5 best things about The Rise of Skywalker. And we'll see where we think about all that kind of stuff. And I will give spoiler warnings in those videos. So thanks for sending that in. All right. Man Mountain Gherkin writes, Lighthouse is in my top 10 of 2019. The most interesting movie I saw this year. That's a good way of putting it. It's an interesting movie. I was absorbed in the dialogue and atmosphere. However, it has 0 rewatchability for me. Does this dichotomy make sense? Oh, it absolutely does. I have seen a number of films. For instance, take a movie like Detroit that came out a couple of years ago. Fabulous and just deep, hard-hitting movie. I love that movie. I don't know that I can ever watch it again, though. And so, or another one like that is Schindler's List. That's one we talk about quite a bit. Schindler's List is a great example of a fabulously wonderful movie, but I don't know that I can watch it again. The Lighthouse is probably not going to end up in my top 10. because I resonate a lot with what you're saying, Man Mountain. I found in The Lighthouse, I was most enthralled and engaged with the performances and the dialogue and the atmosphere. That being said, when I walked out of that movie, I was kind of like, what did I just watch? Like, what did I just watch? But listen, I'm telling you, every time either Robert Pattinson or Willem Dafoe is doing some monologue about being a wiki or a logger or whatever this backstory they're telling, I was totally engrossed with their performances and the dialogue. But again, at the end of the day, I'm like, I'm not really sure what I just watched. So I don't know. So I can totally see where you're coming from, Man Mountain. I don't think there's any conflicting dichotomy there. I totally see what you're talking about. And I believe that happens more often than we realize. All right. Blake writes, I've been rewatching The Office on Netflix. We've been rewatching it too. God, I love that show. I have seen them all, but it's been over a decade since seeing some of them, and oh my God, I forgot how hilarious it is. I actually have anxiety watching Michael Scott interact with people in those early episodes. Yeah, listen, one of the most brilliant things about The Office is that it's so uncomfortable to watch. It is so socially awkward that there are times, and this is a good thing. I know it sounds like I'm describing a bad thing, but there are times that something happens in The Office, whether you're talking about a Scott's Tots episode or the dinner party episode. That's Anne's all-time favorite episode, is the dinner party. When I literally have to jump, when Michael Scott does something so socially uncomfortable that I literally have to jump out of the couch and run to the kitchen going, no, I can't watch. Like, seriously. And I mean that as a good thing. That show is so good and making you feel so socially awkward. It's so overwhelmingly strong. And actually on Christmas Eve, I mentioned we went out to the family's place. So me and Ann were there. Our buddy Ryan was there. Ray was there. And we're all sitting around later on Christmas Eve. We'd had dinner and all that kind of stuff. Now we were just kind of hanging out. And we put on, one of the TV networks was playing all the Christmas episodes, Christmas office party episodes of The Office, right? And we're sitting there watching it and just laughing ourselves sick. And you're right, some of them I hadn't seen in a long time. Some of those episodes I hadn't seen in a long time, but that show is so brilliantly good. Even to this day, man, I hope they do a reunion show someday. I would love to see them all get back together for another show. Anyway, Tyler Yeats writes, in my top 10 in no particular order, I'm assuming you're talking about this year, Knives Out, Parasite, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Jojo Rabbit, Lighthouse, Ford v Ferrari, Queen and Slim, which is really good, Irishman, Marriage Story, and Avengers Endgame. Seeing Uncut Gems today. Yeah, I would see Uncut Gems today, except I'm going to be traveling today. So hopefully get a chance to watch when I'm in Canada one way or the other. That's a good, the only ones I wouldn't think I'd put in my top 10 without really thinking it out yet, because I haven't done my top 10 list. I'll do my top 10 while I'm in Canada. I know Lighthouse won't be in my top 10, although a fascinating movie, absolutely fascinating movie. I'm not sure Once Upon a Time in Hollywood's going to be in my top 10, although I really think DiCaprio and Brad Pitt deserve Academy Award nominations. Yeah, but otherwise, Knives Out, Parasite, Jojo Rabbit, Ford v Ferrari, Irishman, Marriage Story. I mean, some really, and I don't think Endgame's going to be my top 10 either. But again, very enjoyable, super entertaining movie that I really loved. It's a good list, Tyler. It's a good list. All right, Murray Reich writes, 49ers, Seahawks, Falcons, Bucks, Cards, Rams, who you got? All right, here's what I'm doing. I am a little shaky on the Hawks right now. The 49ers are rolling, so I'm going to say 49ers. I believe the Falcons, who have been turning it up lately, I believe the Falcons beat the Bucks. And not impressed at all with the Rams right now. Really not impressed with the Rams right now. I'm going to take the upset and say the Cards over the Rams. So we'll see how that goes. All right. The Oh My God Ruler writes, I emailed somebody at Warner Brothers, and Hamada has no crossover philosophy. He has a trust the director's philosophy. It's just so happens that the directors he trusts aren't interested in crossovers at the moment. In fact, he doesn't really keep any leases on DC films. I know that that's not true. All I can say is that I know for a fact that that's not true. I'm not saying you're lying, Oh My God Rule. I'm not saying you're lying. I'm not saying somebody somewhere didn't maybe say that to you. But I know that that's not the case. I know that that's not the case. I can't go into all the details of how I know that, but that I know that is simply not true. Hamada does have a philosophy, and he's been very, what's the best word to use for it? He's been very purpose-filled in his direction and philosophy. So I'll just leave it at that. Again, I'm not saying I'm not saying you didn't hear that or somebody didn't tell you that. Not at all. I'm sure somebody did tell you that, but I just know that I know for a fact that that's not true. So just take that for what it's worth. All right. Orange Grove 55 writes, the Rise of Skywalker box office has been outpacing The Last Jedi since Monday, only 6% behind it now, crushing it. Yeah, it's doing well. It's doing well. It actually had a better Christmas Day. I think it's made $35 million on Christmas Day alone, which is the second highest Christmas Day box office for any movie in history, only behind The Force Awakens. So it actually outpaced, while it didn't open on its opening weekend as much as The Last Jedi did, it's actually been outpacing it ever since. So it could actually pass it. Don't know yet, but that is an interesting little bit of information there, Orange Grove. Thanks for pointing that out. All right, Santez Henderson writes, Rise of Skywalker, real mistake was using Terrio as the writer. I disagree. Listen, I explained this before. There was a distinct radical gear shift and change of direction for The Rise of Skywalker, even from what episode 9 was going to be. I'm not even just talking about a gear shift from what episode 8 was. There was a massive gear shift even from what episode 9 was going to be under Trevorrow, I believe it was. And, you know, JJ kind of outlined what he wanted to have happen, and Terrio had to write the script based on the outline of what JJ Abrams wanted to have happen in the movie. Terrio is a Academy Award winning, not only an Academy Award winning screenwriter, he's written a movie that won Best Picture at the Academy Awards. He wrote it. He's a great screenwriter, but he has been ever since when trying to do geek-centric films, the 3 times he's really tried to do geek-centric films, he's been thrust into really chaotic situations. Whether you're talking about the DC that he did or this Star Wars movie he did, he has constantly been thrown into movies that are surrounded by chaos and changing of directions and interdepartmental differences and all that kind of stuff. When he's just left to his own devices, working with a filmmaker like Ben Affleck, saying, let's just write a movie and there's no external chaos, it's just a clean slate, let's make a movie. He writes Movie of the Year and wins an Academy Award for screenwriting. But I would suggest let's not judge Chris Terrio on a couple of movie projects that were in complete and utter chaos before he even arrived, and then try to operate within a weird parameters. So I disagree. I don't think the problem was Chris Terrio at all, as a matter of fact. Massive Chatter writes, Nathan for You equals #1 funniest show. I've never even heard of that show. Nathan for You. Never heard of it, but thanks for putting it on my radar. Abdullah Al-Ghatem writes, yay, I can send questions. I'm a big fan from Bahrain. Oh, thank you so much. If you know where that is, I do know where Bahrain is, but I don't think I've ever had somebody write in from Bahrain. Super chats weren't available here. You inspired me to start an Instagram account. Nice. I called it at the Film Jedi. My question is, which comes first, Avengers 5 or Justice League 2? Avengers 5. It's already they've already got it planned. I can guarantee you right now, they already have Avengers 5 planned. I'm not saying they've got a script written. I'm not saying anything like that, but Kevin Feige knows what he wants to do with Avengers 5. And I think it's already kind of mapped out. And so I absolutely believe that. And by the way, I keep telling people, Abdullah, that you need to more people should get involved. Instagram is a great, I'm always saying get involved, podcasting, blogging, or YouTube, right? I should also start mentioning Instagramming, because I've got a number of people I know who do great stuff and they use Instagram as their foundation for doing it. And I think that's a marvelous way to do it and get more involved and adding your voices to the conversation and developing a community. I think that's a great way to do it. So good on you, Abdullah, for doing that. And I think it's a really creative way to do it. It takes a little bit less of your time and energy to do it, yet you can still make some really, you can still contribute to the film fan community. You can develop a little community. I think it's a great idea. Good on you for doing that. And thank you for writing in from Bahrain. I love that. Thank you, man. All right. Tony Rodriguez writes, Hey, John, the quote from Tuesday, "Who's your daddy and what does he do?" is from Kindergarten Cop, not True Lies. Really? Is that true? I totally see it in my head. True Lies is my all-time favorite action film, by the way, so I should know this. I feel like I totally see it in my head, Arnold saying that line, but maybe I'm just seeing Arnold saying it. Maybe I'm getting my Arnold movies crossed up because I knew it was Arnold. That "Who's your daddy and what does he do?" from Kindergarten Cop, True Lies. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you and the crew. And we will be watching the show with great interest next. We'll be watching your career with great interest. Thank you for that, Tony. And I'm feeling a little bit embarrassed. I guess I just saw Arnold's face in my head saying the line, which is true, was Arnold. But having it crossed up with it, and I should have known that because True Lies is my all-time favorite action film. I should have known that. Thank you for the correction on that, Tony. I appreciate that. Angela Dashner writes in a $50 one. So again, I will, if there's a question in here, I'm going to make its own video based on this. So let's get to it right now. Thank you for supporting the channel on that level, Angela. We appreciate it around here. Merry Christmas. Thank you so much, Angela, and to you as well. Thanks for all you do. Watch The Rise of Skywalker. I see some of the problems, but overall, I had a good time. Overall, still have the original trilogy. What movie are you looking forward to in 2020? For me, I think it's Wonder Woman. We've talked about that a bunch here on the show. So let me just bring something up here. So there's a number of them that we got to look. It's hard not to look at Dune. If Dune is the one coming out in 2020, I believe it is. Dune might be the top of the list. I'm very excited about Wonder Woman. I think I got to say Quiet Place 2. Because the first Quiet Place was, I mean, I think you got Christopher Nolan's Tenet as well, but because Quiet Place was my number one favorite movie of the year it came out, and I was so fascinated with it, I think I got to say Quiet Place 2. But Angela, because this is a $50 question, give me a couple of days because I'm going on vacation and everything, but I'm going to address, I'll get to some more of my most anticipated films of 2020 a little bit later. Hang tight though with that, and I'll do yours in its own standalone video. So thank you for writing that in. I appreciate the support, but right now off the top of my head, I'm going to say my most anticipated movie of 2020 has got to be A Quiet Place 2. So I'll leave that for now. Let's see. Tater Tots. Chocolate and tater tots. Still one of the best movie lines. Did you see that actor from The Mandalorian trashing Rise of Skywalker, calling it an absolute failure? Yeah, we kind of touched on this the other day. Look, I don't know this guy, but what an idiot. What an idiot. If you are part of a film franchise, if you're part of a cinematic universe, and you're getting like a part of what you get paid for is promoting your franchise. That's part of what you get paid for. That doesn't mean you have to lie. Listen, I have done interviews with celebrities where I didn't like the movie. As a matter of fact, wait a second, what's her name again? I think it's the 1998 version. Is that the one? I think this is the one. Hold a second. Nope, that's not it. Which one is it? I'm forgetting. Is it the 2012 one? No, I don't think it's the 2012 one. That's the Hugh Jackman movie. No, okay, no, it was. Okay, so I remember this one time I had to interview, I got the privilege and the honor of sitting down and interviewing Amanda Seyfried, who I'm sure I'm mispronouncing your name. So I got a chance to sit down and interview her about a movie she had just done. I'm forgetting the name of the movie. I'm trying to see if I can find the name of the movie. I think it's called Gone. Let me open it up again. Yes. I got to sit down and interview her for a movie she did called Gone. All right. The movie is terrible. Like really terrible. And she wasn't bad in it, but the movie itself was just brutally bad. Jennifer Carpenter's in it, Sebastian Stan is in it, all that kind, but brutally bad movie. So I'm not going to lie to her though and say, "Hi Amanda, congratulations on the movie. It was awesome. I really like." No, I'm not going to lie. But I'm also not going to trash her movie as she's sitting there doing me the honor of doing an interview. And so I would only say things that I actually liked. So I would talk about, there's this scene in this movie, Amanda, where you did this, and I thought that was really interesting because this and this and this and this. And that was 100% true. And then, I would ask her another question about something that I actually did like in the film, or something that didn't suggest whether I liked it or not. But, I didn't lie, but I also didn't throw her under the bus. You know what I mean? Anyway, I think if you're part of a franchise, you don't have to lie. But I think it's, number one, really unprofessional, and number two, really stupid to, in a franchise you're a part of, come out and trash what another part of that franchise is doing. You don't have to lie, but then just shut up. Say what you really thought about it 5 years from now. But shut up. Like, I'll be honest with you. Let's go back to the AMC days. I had somebody who was on my staff at the time, and we had like 18 people on staff at the time. I had somebody on my staff who I adored, but getting into something kind of heated with another member of my staff publicly on Twitter. And suddenly this person who I adored was writing some really insulting things and kind of trashing this other person who was also on my staff publicly, saying this person is this and blah, blah, blah. And I remember pulling them into my office. And hey, sometimes I had to play the heavy. That's what you got to do when you're the boss sometimes. And I had to let them know, it's like, look, I understand maybe why you're a little bit upset with this person. And I'm going to bring both of you into my office and we're going to sit down. We're going to flesh this out. But I'm going to tell you right now, that person is on my staff. That person is on the same team that you're on. And what I'm not going to tolerate here is you getting online as a member of my team, bashing another member of my team and throwing them under the bus. Because that's bad for the team as a whole. That means me having you here is detrimental to what I'm building. And if you're going to be detrimental to what I'm building, then you and I can't work together anymore. And I just had to put it out there. I just had to be honest. I just had to flat out, I don't dance around it. I just had to say, look, you're part of this team. You don't have to pretend that you love this other person, but you got to reel in this publicly bashing the other person because you're all part of the same team. And I can't have you on my team or being a part of it if you're just going to attack other parts of my team and do so publicly. If you got a grievance, sit down with the person one-on-one privately and hash it out. If you need a moderator, come into my office and sit down and we'll work it out. But this whole thing about publicly bashing them, that ain't going to work. So it's either got to stop or you got to go, And that wasn't a comfortable conversation because I really liked this person. I did. But, it was what it was. And sometimes when you're the person in charge, you got to make some unpopular decisions for the good of the team. And that's what I did. So I just think what this guy did was really unprofessional. And I think what the guy did was really stupid. I don't think you don't have to lie. He doesn't have to come out and say, I love The Rise of Skywalker. Because I don't like it either. You don't have to come out and lie. Just say, you know what? I'm really proud to be a part of the Star Wars franchise. It's such an honor to be a part of this franchise. Blah, blah, blah. And then move on. And then maybe 5 years from now, when it's all in everybody's rearview mirror, then go like, yeah, I wasn't a big fan of it. But I don't know. Right now, I think it's unprofessional. And I think it's really dumb. Because who at Lucasfilm and who at Disney, this is why, if I was this guy's buddy, I would say, stop. Because who at Disney's going to want to work with him now? Oh, if I work with you, you might start bashing my movie publicly while the movie's in theaters or while the show is on TV. So I thought it was unprofessional, but I also think for him personally, it was really, really stupid to do. But anyway, that's just, I don't know. Look, like many situations, I'm sure there might be more behind the scenes stuff here that we don't know about. And maybe that's the case. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it is. But I just, again, on the surface, I just thought it was unprofessional and was pretty stupid. Okay. Anyway, let's move on here. Superman Steve writes, John, it's 3 a.m. in the morning here in Australia. I'm on Christmas holiday and I have never watched you live before. Well, I'm glad you're able to watch live. This is really cool. Awesome show today, John. Absolutely loved it. Have an incredible day. Well, I'm glad that you actually had a chance to watch live. I mean, the nice thing about the tip link, besides the fact that it supports the channel and you guys support the channel, and thank you so much for that. But the other nice thing about the tip link is that you can send it in 24/7. You can send in the questions to be on the show 24/7. And that's why I didn't know, Superman Steve, that you've never actually had a chance to watch the show live, because so many of your questions are on the show. I just feel like you're a part of the live show, which of course you are. But that's neat that you get to watch it for the first time today live. So thanks for that, man. I appreciate that. It's good to have you here. All right. And have a wonderful holiday, my friend. All right. Andres Moran writes, hey, John, I know you hate ketchup with eggs. I do. You know what? Oh, I actually just went out to breakfast with Ann and my mother-in-law. And as we're sitting there, it was like a horror movie in slow motion. You know when something in a movie, something horrible is happening, the filmmakers make it go in slow motion? Oh my God. I'm sitting there getting ready to have breakfast with my wife and my beloved mother-in-law. And my mother-in-law, it's in slow motion. She's got the eggs in front of her and I see her reaching for the ketchup and undoing the top of the ketchup bottle and starting to pour ketchup on her eggs. And it's like me in slow motion, like, no. Oh my God, it was so disturbing. And Anne started laughing at me immediately. Anyway, I know you hate ketchup with eggs. Well, my son likes ketchup in a tortilla. Really, I'm horrified, thinking seriously of disowning him. Love your show. Well, listen, Andres, you know what my favorites, I joke about sometimes. You know what my absolute favorite sandwich was for a long time? Peanut butter, and mayonnaise. It's true. I think I've shared that on the show before. For a while when I was in school, I used to love coming home during lunch break, pull out some bread, and make a peanut butter, and mayonnaise sandwich. Now, right now, many of you are writhing on the floor in agony, even thinking about the concept of a peanut butter, and mayonnaise sandwiches, and I can't say that I blame you. But that was one of my big things for a while. So as I grew out of it, but I do want to try it again sometime. It's been like 20 years since I've made one of those. Maybe I should make another one again. I'm just saying, before you disown your son, give him a little space. He might grow out of it as I grew out of the peanut butter, and mayonnaise sandwiches. But now I got to try it again. Maybe I'll like it again. I don't know. Neo Man 28 writes, hey, John, since Taskmaster isn't going to have a proper skull mask in Black Widow, do we know that for sure, though? Do we know that for sure? We'll see. Do you think we will ever actually get a Ghost Rider movie? Since China is a big focus, do you think we will get a movie? Maybe he'll have a flaming Care Bear head. Thoughts? Listen, the Chinese market is one you have to be aware of because it is the second largest market in the world. I mean, there's a lot of money to be made there. But while I think Disney and Kevin Feige will take China into consideration when developing their movies, I don't think Kevin Feige is going to allow it to be the be-all, end-all deciding factor about what he does or doesn't do. Listen, I don't know, and I say I don't know because I don't know. I don't know whether they would ever do a Ghost Rider anyway, because number one, it has a, let's say it comes along with some baggage right now, maybe because of the way the public responded to some previous films. But on top of that, it's already tied into the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. thing that they did, which I got to admit, I'm not an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fan. You guys know this, but I did like what they did was in the framework of that show. I kind of liked what they did with that character. I enjoyed the Ghost Rider character, but can you then take that and make a movie out of it? I don't know. Because then you're breaking their own internal canon. So I don't know. I will say this though, Neo Man. If they don't end up doing a Ghost Rider, I don't think it'll have anything to do with China. I think if they don't do Ghost Rider, it'll have more to do with this already existing tie-ins with Ghost Rider, as well, or tie-ins with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., as well as the fact that there comes along with it some baggage as to past audience reactions to the Ghost Rider character in film before. So I think that would probably be a bigger issue than anything else. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. So I doubt they'll do it, but I'm not going to say that they won't, because Kevin Feige surprises us all the times. Maybe he will. I just don't know that China will be the deciding factor in that. So that's just my thought on that. All right. Island Girl writes, Merry Christmas to you and the crew from Antigua. Well, thank you. So we're getting a lot of great messages from international friends here today. This is great. Keep up the great work for 2020. Thank you so much. I watch your show every day. It's so pleasing to my soul and brings me such happiness. Anyway, now I know why I never loved cats. Cats without buttholes are just criminal. And somewhere out there right now in Los Angeles, Chris Carr is yelling amen in the screen. Of course, that's been big. Like, where's the buttholes? Cats have buttholes. These cats have no buttholes. That's kind of freaky to me. That's always been her big thing. So Island Girl, right now, I'm sure Chris Carr is sending out all of her digital love to you. She loves the fact that you said that, and we'll see. But anyway, thank you so much for watching the show and being part of our Film Fan International Friends community. It's great to have you here, and I hope you have a wonderful holiday season as well. So thanks for sending that in, Island Girl. All right. Superman Steve writes, love the new swivel camera. That was a really cool element to your show. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I did. I like, especially when, now I don't have it on right now, but I look, you guys know we make money. I take that money and I invest it back in the show, or I invest it back into content that I think my audience will like. And that always means I'm improving the software that we use. I'm paying these great people who I have work with me. I buy new gear and new equipment. I do all these different sorts of things. And I've always enjoyed having, with static camera shots are great, but I've always enjoyed having a little bit of movement in shots. And so I was finally able to get around to figure out a way in my little space here to create a shot with a little bit of movement. And thank you. And I really like it. So it makes my heart smile, Superman Steve, that you pointed out. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. All right. Stubble McShave writes, apple and apple cider is a better analogy than melons. Maybe. Okay. Listen, you got to understand though, the analogy was kind of made up on spur of the moment. I was just like, okay, look, I understand there are apples in the bag. What I'm saying is there's not something else. Like, I don't know, watermelons. There's no watermelons in the bag. I agree there are apples in the bag. I agree. I'm just saying there's no watermelons in the bag. But you're right, apples and apple cider. Maybe if I thought about it, Stubble, maybe I would have come up with that, but that's probably a better one. I agree. All right, Ted Wu writes, you are a genius. I am? Can you tell my wife that? That would be great. First, the straw trick with popcorn worked perfectly. I'm glad you like that, my friend. Good on you. I'm glad to spread the gospel of that. Secondly, eating dinner after the movie also worked perfectly. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that you took my advice on that. That's right. Obviously, two things. For those of you who don't know what Ted's talking about. Number one, to me, popcorn is nothing but a butter delivery device. When I get butter, I never eat popcorn except for when I'm at the movies. I don't know why. I just got to have it at the movies, even though I never eat it any other time. But you got to have butter. So much butter. Oh God, it's so unhealthy. And I like butter so much that, when you put butter on the top of popcorn, but after you eat the top layer of popcorn, there's no more butter. So what do? I stick a straw down to near the bottom of the bag, not at the bottom, but near the bottom. Then put the other end of the straw up against the butter dispenser. Hit the butter, starts going down. So the butter's being delivered to the bottom of the bag. And then I move the straw around and move the bag around and then lower the bag lower the bag down so the straw is moving up. So then you're getting butter all the way from the bottom of the bag to the top. Now, Erin almost gags whenever I mention that. She hates that idea. And she's seen me do it in person. Now, the other thing about dating, biggest mistake people make on first dates. This is the biggest mistake. See, some people say, a movie isn't really good for a first date because you get a chance to talk and blah, blah, blah. I say, then you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. Don't do dinner and then movie. Do movie and then either dinner or drinks? Movie comes first, right? Because you don't want to end your date with the two of you sitting quietly in a theater, not talking to each other, and then being the movie be over and go, okay, see you later. No. You go to a movie first. Then, now that you've seen the movie, the two of you have a shared experience together. Now, when you go to dinner or go have drinks, you have a starting point for a conversation. It's like, we just had this shared experience. We both just watched this movie, and now we've got a starting point to talk about and engage with, and we just had this experience together and blah, blah, blah. Don't do dinner and a movie for a first date. Do a movie, then dinner. It's very important, and I'm glad you took my advice, Ted. Thanks for sharing it and spreading the gospel. All right, CO2 sends in a really large super chat. Thank you for supporting the channel on that level, CO2. Did you ever watch Yu-Gi-Oh? I never did. Never did. I mean, I shouldn't say I never did. I'm sure I've stumbled across it and maybe watched a few minutes of it here or there, but it would be inaccurate for me to say that I watched Yu-Gi-Oh. So no, honestly, the real answer is no, I never really watched Yu-Gi-Oh. So I don't have a good or bad opinion of it because I've just never watched it. All right, Mike Thompson writes, Happy Boxing Day. Thank you so much, man. In honor of the day, can you explain to folks like me who have lived in the U.S. our entire lives exactly what it is? Okay, so here's what Boxing Day is, and it's a much bigger deal in Canada than it is here. Now, in the U.S., your big shopping day is Black Friday. Great. Nothing wrong with that. In Canada, we do something that makes a lot more sense. Not that I'm biased, which is Boxing Day. That is the day after Christmas, okay? Like you're boxing everything up now, putting everything away. Boxing Day. Not boxing, but boxing, putting things away. That's the day in Canada, and I think in a couple of other countries as well, when you get all the big sales, which makes sense because now everybody's already spent all their money. So the stores are like, well, if we're going to sell anything, we got to lower the prices a lot because it's after Christmas now. Everybody's done all their shopping. Everybody's done all their spending. So in Canada, Boxing Day sales is a huge thing. Huge thing. I remember me and my dad would go to like Canadian Tire or go to Future Shop or Best Buy or whatever for the early morning doorbuster things. And that's when you get the real big sales because they know we've got to put everything on drastic sale because everybody's already spent all their money. Everybody's already bought all their gifts because it's the day after Christmas. So if we don't do something radical like big Boxing Day sales, there's going to be no business after Christmas. There's just going to be no business. So we have Boxing Day in Canada. It's the best thing ever. I remember a couple of years ago, Ann and I went back to Canada for Christmas and we took my brother-in-law, Ray, who does the graphics on the show. We took Ray and my mother-in-law too. So Ray had never experienced a Boxing Day. And we took him out for Boxing Day and he was traumatized because a lot of people go Boxing Day shopping. He was absolutely, he goes, man, I can't believe I've never seen crowds like that. I said, I know, right? Anyway, so that's the difference. I mean, and you can prefer one over the other. That's perfectly fine. But for me personally, I always thought Boxing Day made more sense. Okay. AV Callie writes, do you think X-Men will be introduced in Doctor Strange 2? They exist in a parallel universe? No, I don't think so. Again, I'm not saying they won't. They could be. When you're doing a Doctor Strange movie, anything is possible. But honestly, no, I do not think, look, Kevin Feige already very clearly said that he already had his next few years all mapped out, and those plans did not involve X-Men or Fantastic Four. So I don't believe he's just going to last minute shoehorn X-Men in. So no, I don't believe it. It already looks like they've got a lot of stuff to cover in Doctor Strange 2. So no, I don't think he's going to be that. I'm not saying it's impossible. It's Kevin Feige. He can do the unexpected, absolutely. But I'm not expecting them to do that because I believe what Kevin Feige said. I still believe we're a little ways away from getting anything X-Men related in the MCU. All right, Supercam13 writes, I know losing someone to suicide is terrible. I've experienced that, especially for Zack Snyder. Especially, I mean, that was his kid, man. That was his kid. Do you think that he wants to complete and release his Justice League in memory of his daughter? I have been noticing fans on Twitter using her pick kind of like mortar for the Release the Snyder Cut campaign, which I think that's classless. I think it's classless to bring up his daughter in any way, shape, or form, personally, other than just to completely separate from Release the Snyder Cut, just to say, hey, whatever, and do some sort of tribute to that. Listen, I have lost a couple of people I've known in my life to suicide. And I'm sure a lot of people have been touched by that. I can't even though begin to imagine losing a child. I mean, I can't even imagine losing a child, period, let alone losing it the way Zack did. I mean, that's got to be a depth of grief and pain that I can't even wrap my head around. And I think if we're all honest, we'll all acknowledge that that's a level of grief and pain that we can't even possibly imagine. Can't even possibly imagine. So I don't think for anybody outside of Zack to invoke the name of his daughter in something as trivial as a movie, like release the Snyder Cut, whether it's pro or against, I don't think that's appropriate. I don't think that's appropriate at all. So I understand you're asking this from a totally innocent point of view, Supercam 13. I get it, but I hope you understand that I don't even feel like I want to address that, because I just don't think bringing up his daughter in such a context is something we should do. That's a whole another level of real life stuff, and we shouldn't bring that into something like what level of editing is a certain potential cut of a movie done. I mean, I don't feel good about that. I know you're totally innocently asking. I'm not coming down on you at all. You're totally innocently asking, but I don't feel good about that at all. By the way, a little bit earlier I was mentioning that I will always be massively grateful to Zack Snyder. I don't know if you saw this before, because I did this I did this on the show before, but if you want to look up here, I'll show you. I only have one big movie standee in my studio. One big movie standee in my studio. And who is it? Bum, 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 bum. It's the Man of Steel. I got Henry Cavill over there, Zack Snyder's Man of Steel. It's the only big standee. I do my show here, guys. I do my show here under the secure knowledge that I've got Henry Cavill. I've got the Man of Steel here watching over me and watching over my show. And it makes me feel safe and protected that Zack Snyder's Man of Steel is watching over me doing my show. That's how much I love that movie. That's how much I love what Zack Snyder did with that movie. But again, I don't think we should be entertaining conversations about what happened with him and his real life and his daughter and something as stupid as this. And again, I know you asked completely innocently. You mean nothing by it. I totally get it. Don't feel bad about asking. I'm just saying, I hope you understand that I don't feel that's even a conversation we should entertain. It's just so far beyond the scope of movies and entertainment. I think it undermines the pain that family felt just for the sake of a movie discussion. So anyway, that's the way I feel about it. Man Mountain Gherkin writes, movies turning 1 year old next year. Endgame. Somebody wrote in talking about movies turning 20. So Man Mountain Gherkins. Movies turning 1 year old next year. Endgame, Far From Home, Joker, Shazam, Lighthouse, etc., etc., etc. Well said, Man Mountain. Well said. Ladislav Masonic writes, happy holidays, John. Thank you so much. I am still dumbstruck when I hear there are no assigned seats in a movie theater. We had those long before the internet times. Again, I'm not sure which country you're from. That's one of the things, and it wasn't many years ago that a lot of North American theaters did not have pre-assigned seating for their audiences. And I would be like, guys, there are countries all over the world that have been doing this forever, and people around the world, movie fans in other countries, look at us like we're idiots and like, wait a minute, time out. You guys in North America don't have pre-assigned seating for your movie theaters? Are you living the dark ages? And it always used to frustrate me so much. So I'm glad you guys had it, Ladislav, and thank you for paving the way for us to go into the more common civilized age of actually having pre-assigned seats. So thanks for that, Ladislav. All right, Jacob Waldrop writes, saw Rise of Skywalker and sat through 41 minutes of trailers. WTF. Dude, there is no excuse for that. As a fellow film fan, I feel so bad that you had to go through that BS. That is nonsense. This era we live in where we got to sit through 25, 30 plus minutes of commercials before actually watching the movie that we paid to come in and watch is unacceptable. And that's horrible that you had that experience, Jacob. Ginny Moo writes, which directorial breakout was the biggest surprise for you? John Krasinski's A Quiet Place or Jordan Peele's Get Out, Love from Australia? Well, technically speaking, Get Out, if I'm not mistaken, was not John Krasinski's first, was not his first movie that he directed. He directed another one before that. Hold on a second, let me just bring it up here. He directed a fun little comedy, I believe it's called The Haulers. Where is it? Yeah, The Haulers. Although it was not a wide release, he also directed a number of episodes of The Office, by the way. But he did this little movie called The Haulers that had District 9 Charlton Copley. It also had Anna Kendrick and a couple of other people. The guy from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, who was also in Pacific Rim. Charlie Day was in it. So he directed that as well. Now, it didn't get a wide release in theaters, so in some way that kind of was. So I got to disqualify John Krasinski from that conversation because that wasn't his first film, whereas Get Out was Jordan Peele's first film directing. And my God, I look at some people with their first directorial jobs doing the right kind of movie, smaller movies, and then it really gives them a chance to cut their teeth and shine. Jordan Peele doing that. Why am I forgetting Olivia's name? Who directed Booksmart? Olivia Wilde. Olivia Wilde directing Booksmart. The person who just directed Queen and Slim. These are first-time directors doing the types of movies first-time directors should do. Smaller, lower budget, gives them the ability to really show off their stuff and cut their teeth without it being all the pressure of a big tentpole project. These are the types of movies, Queen and Slim, Booksmart, Get Out. These are the types of movies that first-time directors should be doing. And like you're seeing what some of these first-time directors, now a lot of first-time directors fall on their face the first time out, and that's fine. But we're living in an era where we get to see a lot of really good ones these days, which is great. All right, guys, just got a couple of minutes left here, because again, I got to start getting ready to travel. So I'm going to fly through these last few ones. I'm going to make sure we get through all of them here. Ben Rayner writes, I understand where Snyder Cut people are coming from after I saw Star Wars Episode 9. I am not saying release the Rian Johnson cut, but I understand wanting a different version of a movie. I would love the continuation after Last Jedi instead of the movie we got, a mess in my opinion. Yeah, no, listen, and I get it too. Listen, there are people like me who enjoyed Justice League, who super enjoyed Man of Steel. Super, get it? That was an unintended pun. Who, I get it. They, and this wasn't really, it was partially Zack Snyder's film, partially not. That they would then have a desire to see, hey, what would this look like if Zack had seen it all the way through? I get it. I completely agree with you, Ben. I totally understand that mentality. Ginny also writes, finally got to watch Jojo Rabbit. My number one film of the year. It had a Boxing Day release here in Australia. Really? Loved it. I can't wait for Taika's Mandalorian finale in just hours. Just hours? I don't think that doesn't come out till Friday. I totally forgot that tomorrow's Friday. I'm about hours. It doesn't come out till Friday. And I totally forgot that tomorrow is indeed Friday. I don't know why I froze in that. So you're absolutely right. I'm so zoned because of the holidays. All right. Daniel Hinoja writes, love episode 9, went in, enjoyed all I want from a movie, which is awesome. And I think a lot of people agree with me. When you look online, man, a lot of people love this movie, and I'm glad you're one of them, my friend. Jesse Lopez writes, John, you missed my super chat from earlier today. Really? Let me double check. Let me see if I can find where it is. Oh, you're right. I did miss your question. My apologies for that, Jesse. Let's get to that right now. Sometimes I'm doing this all by myself. I'm alone in here. I'm trying to do the cameras, the audio, the camera switching, scrolling through the questions. Every once in a blue moon, I will miss a question. Jesse, my apologies. Thanks for bringing this to my attention. All right, Jesse wrote in. Kevin Smith said this past summer that the last shot of Rise of Skywalker would melt your mind. Unfortunately, it didn't for me, but did it for you? No. And now, of course, Jesse, we can't go into any details about it. We can't discuss what it was and why it did or did not blow our minds because, again, we don't want to give spoilers away at this point. But I thought, here's what I'll say. My wife hated the last scene. And there is something very, very wrong with the last scene. There's something very wrong and inconsistent with the last scene. And my wife hates the last scene because of it. Me, I still liked the last scene. I thought the last scene felt nice. And for those of you who've seen the movie, you know what we're talking about. I thought the last scene felt nice, but yeah, I do have some problems with the last scene though. No, it didn't melt my mind, not at all. An anonymous viewer writes, in the Last of Us 2 trailer, we see Ellie being held down when we hear a gunshot with her screaming. No, everybody thinks it's her girlfriend Dana. Over under 25% that it's Joel. I think it's the girlfriend. I think it's the girlfriend. I don't think they kill off Joel. Now, I don't know that. But I mean, he's kind of, you can make an argument that she's the central character. You can make an argument that he's the central character. You can make an argument that both of them together are the central characters. I don't think they kill him off. I could be wrong. They very well could do it, but I don't think they kill him off. So I'm going to go under 25%. That's not zero, but I will go under 25% that is Joel. Jaron Morris writes, John, let's say Khabib goes 30-0. I know it won't happen, but what if he moved up a weight class and did the exact same thing he does undefeated? What would the world say about him? Hashtag Team Khabib. Nurmagomedov is, try saying his last name 10 times fast. Even I just said it. Now I'm having trouble. Nurmagomedov. Khabib time. He is, in my opinion, he is the best. He is the pound for pound baddest man alive. If he were to move up a weight class and do it all again, sure, but that's not. He said he's got no desire to do that. He's already fights in probably the deepest division in all of MMA. He is so far ahead of everybody else in the world. I don't believe there's anybody pound for pound that can stand up to Khabib Nurmagomedov. I keep saying it differently every time. There's nobody in the world who can stand up to him. Nobody. The only chance anybody ever has against him is a lucky punch chance, which everybody has. Right? We saw Matt Serra beat George St. Pierre because of a lucky shot behind the head, but hey, he won. George St. Pierre came back in the rematch and destroyed him, but still, he won. And so anybody else has that chance against Khabib as well, but that's the only chance anybody has. He is going to retire undefeated. He's going to defend the title, I think, one or two more times, and then he's going to retire. And I think he is in the conversation of the greatest mixed martial artists of all time. I don't think George St. Pierre can beat him. I don't think John Bones Jones can beat him. Pound for pound. I don't think, Stipe Miocic, the world's heavyweight champion, I don't think he could beat him pound for pound. He is simply the greatest. I don't think anybody in the world is nearly as good as he is. So anyway, we'll see. But I don't think he's going to move up a weight class. I don't think he has any desire to do that. I think this is his natural weight. I think this is where he wants to fight. It's one of the deepest divisions of all of MMA. And he'll destroy anybody. All right. Massive Jada writes, Nathan For You is a docu-reality comedy show about Nathan Fielder helping small businesses that really exist. Many famous industry people say it's one of the funniest shows ever. Nathan is the king of cringe. Look up the movement clip on YouTube. All right, I got to do that because Matsiv brought up a little bit earlier in the show that he thinks Nathan For You is like his funniest show ever. I've never even heard of it, but if I remember to, I will go and check that out because that actually sounds pretty interesting to me. Thanks for following up on that, Matsiv. All right. Kamchia430 writes, love the show, literally eating popcorn as we're doing. Hopefully it's enriched with some glorious butter, my friend. Hopefully you got some good butter on there. All right. Tony Rodriguez writes, I'm with you with the peanut butter and mayo sandwich. Sometimes that's all we had growing up, but you got to try that on a hamburger place in Long Island called Local Burgers. Wait a minute. Are you saying there's a burger place that puts butter on a burger is really good? There's a great burger joint in San Diego where they make something called the Butter Burger, where it's a burger just soaked in butter. It's stupidly delicious, but you can't have more than one because you'll get sick. But you're saying there's a place that actually puts peanut butter, and mayo on a hamburger? Place in Long Island called Local Burger. Wow. I don't know if I can fathom what a burger with peanut butter on it tastes like. All right. Simon writes, thanks for giving them the plug though, Tony. Simon writes, last couple of questions, guys, and we got to sign out. Simon writes, I just want to say thank you for all that you do, and I brotherly love you. Keep doing what you do. May God bless. Thank you so much, Simon. We appreciate you being part of the film fan community and allowing me to be a part of it with you. And thanks for the support, and I hope you have a marvelous rest of the holiday. Simon also writes, that message was meant for you, John. I assume that, Simon, so thank you for following up on that. I appreciate it, man, very much. And the final question of the day comes to us from Darklock63, who writes, I find it amusing people are calling for Kennedy to be fired again. Do they not realize that as long as the movie is profitable, it outweighs fan dissatisfaction? I would be, the thing is though, you can't, that is a huge factor. For sure, that's a huge factor. But you also have to take in consideration what kind of groundwork are you laying for future films. Look what happened with Transformers. Yeah, they got away with it for a while. They got away with making crappy big movies. And I like the Star Wars movies other than Rise of Skywalker. I like the Star Wars movies, but I'm just saying for this point that they made crappy movie after crappy movie with the Transformers, but they kept making money. But eventually the audience caught on and said, you know what, now we're done. We're done. And then they had one that we saw the box office tremendously drop to the point that they had one that barely broke even. Now, the Star Wars movies are doing radically more than just barely breaking even. That's true, but you do have to think longer term. Now, I, for one, like the movies they've made under Kathleen Kennedy, other than this one. I have other issues with Kathy Kennedy. Her inability to work with directors, I've spoke about that at length before. So I understand that there are people who are Star Wars fans that would like to see her replaced. I think she should step down, personally. I think she is one of the greatest producers in the history of Hollywood. But so I'm a fan of Kathy Kennedy. I'm a fan of Kathy Kennedy. But I also believe she has unfortunately made the decision to approach these Star Wars films as a producer instead of as a studio head, and her inability to work with multiple directors and be on the same page with them before announcing them as their directors and having to go through multiple director changes on many of the projects. I think maybe she's to step down. It doesn't change the fact that I'm a fan of hers and I think she's great. I do think she's great. I think she's one of the best producers ever. But I think it would be good for her and maybe good for Star Wars for her to step down and start with a new, fresh direction. I think it would be, sometimes a good change of scenery is good for everybody, and I think this would be good for her career. I think it would be good for Star Wars. So we'll see. I mean, if she stays, she stays, and I'll just cheer for the next movie that they do. But I think it would be in everybody's best interest, including hers, to maybe step down and go off and do what she's really great at, which is producing all-time great movies. But who knows? We'll have to see. All right, guys. That will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. This episode we didn't even think we were going to do today. Of course, there will not be a John Campea Show tomorrow. I'm leaving tonight to travel to Canada, so there won't be a John Campea Show tomorrow. However, watch for the John Campea Show to return next week. But I will be doing a couple of little videos from Canada. Videos like my top 10 favorite films of the year, like my 5 biggest problems with The Rise of Skywalker, my 5 best things about The Rise of Skywalker, and probably do my favorite films of the decade as well. So I'm going to do a couple small videos while I'm up there as well. So keep your guys' eyes open for that. That will do it for me for now, guys. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your holiday. Thank you for being here and letting this show be a part of your day. And thank you to all you guys who sent in questions, not just because you gave us great fun things to talk about, but also because you supported the channel while you're doing that. And all of us here at the John Campea YouTube channel, thank you deeply for that. All right, guys, that will do it for me. My name is John Campea, and until next time, bye-bye.